Greetings, my name is Patricia Lassard and I'm a certified breakthrough parenting instructor. If this is your first video, welcome, and if this is not your first video and you've watched a few of the other ones, I would like to say thank you and welcome back. I've used this material to enhance my relationship with my children, and I've also used it in my professional life and with my extended family. It's as much a course on personal development and relationships with everyone as a parenting program. So this information I found enrich my whole life, and I hope you will find it enriches all yours as well. So I wanted to move back and I wanted to talk about, start today talking about avoiding polarized thinking. So polarized thinking, it would be considered like when we think about things as they're in black and white. The thinking is characterized by me or you, this or that, right or wrong, true or false, them or us. I think you sort of get the idea. This thinking has all the good on one side and the bad on the other, because right or wrong. And so you know where you stand because it's very cut or dry. But unfortunately, there's no room for shades of gray with this, which is really more realistic of life. Things aren't always 100% right or 100% wrong. Young children, though, and this is important to understand, young children must first sort out their experiences into right and wrong so that they can understand them before they can understand and develop into the finer distinctions. So that gives you a little bit of insight in how to handle young children when you realize that they have to sort their experiences into right or wrong, you or me, black and white. So that gives you a little, but us as parents, it's our responsibility to teach them how to bring in the finer shades of gray when it's suitable as time permits. But that is our goal as their guide, steward, mentor, to do this for them. I like this quote. I'm not sure where I got it, but and the greatest obstacle to progress is not ignorance, but the illusion of knowledge. I found that kind of interesting. So now I want to move on to the victim thinking, the victim syndrome. Now, I would like to, as we're going through this, I would like you to think about identifying where you are, where your children may be, where family members and people you work with. Just think about, as we're going through this, just think about the people that you know and where you think that they fit in here, if they fit in here. Because this is going to give you some insight for lots of different types of people. So moving from victim thinking to taking responsibility. Now, very interesting thing is, this is where children start out. Children deflect responsibility for their actions on someone or something else naturally. It wasn't them. They didn't do it. It was someone or someone else. Take an example of a child bouncing a ball in the living room, and you say, Johnny, don't bounce that ball in the living room. Something's going to get broken. The ball will break something. So anyway, Johnny continues to do it. Next thing you know, the ball bounces, it breaks the lamp, and then you go, look, Johnny, look what you did. You broke the lamp. And he looks at you and he goes, Mom, Dad, I didn't break the lamp. The ball broke the lamp. Because they're having trouble following through that his actions of bouncing the ball led to the breaking of the lamp. And if you understand that younger children have this inability to take it those steps further, It helps you not to get so angry and to stay in a discipline mode rather than move into punishment. But looking for it to be a teachable moment. So, because children are not truly clear about who or what is responsible, if they are held accountable, well, then when they try to deflect blame, they are likely to develop a pattern of not accepting responsibility for their behavior. Initially, they may do this out of fear of punishment. They do not want to admit that they maybe made a mistake. Remember, that's why we were talking about the difference, and this is another advantage to using discipline versus punishment. Because if they don't get caught, it seems worth it to pretend that they don't know anything about the situation. So, the victim syndrome. Unfortunately, these children, if left there, can grow up to become even more skilled at ducking and dodging responsibility for their behavior, to the point where it can become an actual dysfunction of their personality. They can easily get caught up in the victim syndrome, which involves 3 separate roles: the victim, the persecutor, and the rescuer. So see if you fit into any of these. The victim syndrome is a pathological condition where people repeatedly blame others for mistreating them when the source of their problem often lies within themselves. This has nothing to do with the person actually being the victim of a harmful act. When people are truly victims, they handle their problems differently from those who are involved in the syndrome. True victims accept personal responsibility, tell the truth, and seek to right what was wrong. Being a victim does not become a way of life for them. Now, victims in the victim syndrome make flawed judgments which they are not willing to take responsibility for. So, their decision may have resulted in an outcome, but it's not their fault. So then we find the rescuer. Victims find rescuers who initially try to help them. So you see someone keeps running out of gas and you run out and you help them, or they're in an abusive relationship, you go and you rescue them out of that, and then they keep going back and back and back and back until you can't take it anymore. So, but these rescuers soon catch on that the victims are being irresponsible because they're not attempting to make any change to their behavior, because none of the behavior, the negative behavior that resulted in it, was their fault, remember? So if it's not their fault, then they can't take responsibility for it, right? So what happens? The rescuers eventually realize that they are being taken advantage of, and they put their foot down and say, no more. Not until you learn to ride, like keep gas in your tank, and maybe it's something else, a problem, like drive on the top half. Maybe you got stuck in traffic, then you ran out of gas, then you need help. But the rescuer eventually says to the victim, you need to start making some change to your behavior. I'm tired of helping you out with the same problem over and over and over again. So guess what? If you stop helping, if you stop rescuing the victims now look at you as a persecutor. Victims don't want to admit that they have done anything wrong or put any effort into making it right. The victim thinks that the rescuers who are complaining about their irresponsible behavior are now their persecutors. Interesting. Most victims have quite a few persecutors after them, which they try to avoid these people, because these are people trying to get them to accept personal responsibility for their actions. Victims get by with irresponsible behavior again and again, which encourages them to continue to behave this way because there hasn't been any consequences to it. Hey, the big surprise. Then victims seek new rescuers who will believe their stories and think that they are true victims who need protection, help, and then the cycle continues. Interestingly enough, criminals think this way. This widespread problem is a direct result of the authoritarian approach that we first discussed in our first lesson, because they are afraid of punishment. See how it's all linking together now? So everyone needs to achieve self-mastery over this problem, and we need to help our children feel safe enough to own up to their participation in the problems that they are having. So we need to let children know it's okay to make a mistake, and we're going to use those as teachable moments, but we don't want them to fear telling us the truth. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you on the next version, which we're going to talk about controlling versus influencing our children. Until then, happy parenting.